Okay, so how long should you rest between sets? So if you've done any traditional strength training, sort of some old-fashioned gym bodybuilding type training, if you've ever had an intro session in a gym, you might have been given a workout program like this where the rest is designated, where you're told to rest either 30 seconds or 90 seconds or 3 minutes or whatever. I don't do that. I don't tell you how long to rest in between sets. I believe in something called auto regulation when it comes to resting, i.e., you listen to your body and rest according to how much rest you need. Obviously, this is very subjective and so is subject to many, many, many errors if you don't really know what you're listening to. So let me give you some guidelines. What most women do is they instinctively just don't rest and they just move straight onto the next set. And they try and get everything done as quickly as possible, and they try and keep their heart rate up, and they want to get sweating and they want to be breathing heavily. This isn't strength training. You're never going to be lifting weights that are heavy enough to make you stronger if you're doing this. This is HIIT training or interval training or circuit training or Metcon or whatever name you want to give it. It's all the same thing. It's doing light weights very fast to get your heart rate up. And it's basically just a form of cardiovascular exercise, cardio. What you want to do is rest for long enough between the sets, at least to bring your heart rate down. So if you do a set of squats, let's go to the intermediate program. Let's say you do a set of squats. Your heart rate is going to get jacked up if you do 12 reps, especially if you're doing it with something relatively heavy. So at the very least, you want your heart rate to come back down. If you're using a heart rate monitor, you want it to come back down to where it was during your warm up, something like no more than 120 beats per minute. If you're not using a heart rate monitor, you should just feel like you're not out of breath and your heart isn't beating hard. That's just as good a guideline. Then you want to do the second set. Then you want to recover from that. You want to recover enough, again, for your heart rate to come down, but you also want to recover enough to feel like you can push hard and go heavy in the next set, okay? So you want to be psychologically and physically recovered to go hard in the next set. And here's a bit of a paradox of strength training. The more advanced you are and the heavier the weight that you're lifting and the stronger you are, the longer you are going to need to rest for. That's because you are doing much more work in the exercise. So if you start off doing 5 kilo goblet squats and you end up doing 50 kilo back squats, you're working 10 times harder in the actual set. So you're going to need more recovery time. You're going to need a lot more time to recover after your push-ups to feel like you can do another heavy set of squats. And a big shift in how you need to think when you get into strength training is going from just keeping your heart rate up and keeping moving all the time to resting a lot between your sets so that you can work really hard and much, much harder in the set. The same concept applies to working out just twice a week, really hard with a lot of intensity with heavy weights, and then resting 5 days a week rather than doing 5 days a week of frantic training. So the shift is from working harder in the time that's designated to actually work and resting more. Obviously, this can go too far the other way, and you can spend far too much time sitting on your bum, scrolling on Instagram, and waiting for your next set and not actually working out. So you want to be paying attention to when you're ready to work again, and you don't really want your rest periods to be longer than 2 minutes between each of the supersets. That's a good way of making sure that you're not making it too long. But really, the only reason to limit the rest periods is because otherwise the workout gets impractically long. You end up being in the gym for 2 hours. That might actually be really good for your performance and for your training harder, but it becomes impractically long. So longer rest periods, the longer the better, but you have to keep them to a certain you have to cut them off after a certain point. Otherwise, you just won't get your workout done, or you'll get to like your hour is up and you've only done the first 2 sets, and you won't have done the whole workout. So main takeaways are your rest should be auto-regulated. You should be just listening to your body to figure out when you're ready for your next set. It's probably something like a minute between each superset, but don't worry if you need a little bit longer. And rest is your friend. We're not doing a cardio workout. We're not trying to get your heart rate high. We're trying to allow you to recover so that you can work harder in the set and actually get stronger, build muscle, build bone density, and all those other things that we talk about.